This video is sponsored by SCRYE. Sign up today with the link in the description for a free 2,000 yen coupon. On January 2nd, 1966, SCRYE Productions launched Ultra Q, an episodic series where a team of investigators deal with strange creatures and supernatural phenomenons in a similar vein as The Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits. For more, check out my review of the series. With such a grand production on their hands, Ultra Q would become a massive hit for SCRYE. But little did they know that the company would eventually spawn perhaps the biggest tokusatsu property to come from Japan. Then came July 10th, 1966, where SCRYE aired a little pilot named The Birth of Ultraman that was meant to be a stage play but re-edited into an episode for television. But this was only the calm before the storm, as the following week, on July 17th, Ultraman would air its first episode, and since then, Ultraman would become one of the major faces and contributors to the kaiju boom of the 60s, pushing the popularity of tokusatsu to greater heights. But before we cover how this legendary giant of an icon came to be, let us hear from this video's sponsor. It's no secret that I'm an avid consumer of Japanese pop culture, but with all these stores that either don't have what you're looking for, overcharge their items, or sometimes lie to your face that their prices match those in Japan, there's no better place to shop than SCRYE. With SCRYE, you can purchase Japanese products straight from Japan. All you gotta do is place an order, pay a service fee, wait for it to arrive at their warehouse, pay for a shipping plan, and you're good to go. I've been using SCRYE for the past year, and it's been my go-to service for purchasing items from Japan. Recently, I bought a copy of G-Savior for the PlayStation 2. Try finding this at your local secondhand store. And just to show you that you're getting a good deal when it comes to SCRYE, I found a Real Action Heroes Get-A-Robo at my local mall that was going for $125. But at SCRYE, not even half that price. But it's not just collectibles that you can purchase at SCRYE. With such a vast multitude of online stores, you can purchase clothes, furniture, and even snacks. And want to know something better? SCRYE is offering 2,000 yen coupons to every person who signs up today by clicking the link in the description of this video. That's about $20 worth of free spending money you're getting if you sign up today. Shopping for Japanese products has never been easier, so go shop at SCRYE today and let the world know about its wonders. After the massive success that was Ultra Q, Tokyo Broadcasting System demanded that SCRYE Productions would deliver another monster-themed TV series, but on one condition: it had to be in color. As at the time, color TVs were one of the biggest global crazes thanks to the 1964 Olympics. Eiji Tsuburaya and Tetsuo Kinjo still wanted to stick with the concept of a team that's working to handle these strange creatures as seen in Ultra Q, but they needed something different. Something special, something memorable. They just needed some money and resources. At the time, Tsuburaya was still cooperating with Toho for their sci-fi films like Matango, Atragon, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Frankenstein Conquers the World, and Monster Zero. In fact, Tsuburaya was set to work on The War of the Gargantuas, which was scheduled to release during the summer season, a month after Ultraman's initial air date. Because of his connections with Toho, Tsuburaya once again resorted to reusing several of the company's assets, from creature roars, to sound effects, to special effects, and even monster suits. Most notable being the Baragon suit from Frankenstein Conquers the World, which had been used for plenty of different Ultra Kaiju, such as Neranga and Gabora. But aside from reusing monster suits from their partners, Tsuburaya and Kinjo also wanted to bring life to several unused concepts from Ultra Q. On top of it, Tsuburaya would also reuse assets from Ultra Q, such as the Garamon suit being used for Pigmon, as well as the Kimmerman suit from the episode Challenge from the year 2020. But in some cases, there'd be a strange case of both reusing concepts while also pushing them to the next level. The Cicada Man from the episode Garamon Strikes Back would become the alien ninja Baltan. Tsuburaya and Kinjo had the Rogues Gallery planned out, but who would be powerful enough to stand against such unique foes? The two kicked some ideas around. An alien superhero named Bemular, who inhabits Officer Sakumizu, who was a tough guy from the Scientific Investigation Agency. This comes from a screenplay by Masahiro Yamada that ultimately went unused for Ultra Q, but was then rejected by TBS because the concept they had for Bemilar looked too similar to their monster lineup, who resembled that of a cross between the mythical Garuda and a Tengu. Because of this, Tsuburaya and Kinjo gave Bemilar a more humanoid figure, with a metallic coloration requested by TBS producer Takashi Kakoi. Bemilar would then be renamed to Redman, the giant humanoid alien refugee who protects the Earth from giant monsters and alien invaders. This new concept features a little tool named the Flash Beam that allows Sakomizu to transform into the titular hero. Around this time, TBS was starting to see great international potential for this new series, thanks to the widespread popularity of the 60s kaiju boom. But Tsuburaya wasn't quite ready yet. Original concepts by Toll Narita were said to be too sinister for a hero character, and abilities were still being kicked around. In fact, most of the Redman concept would be abandoned, and wouldn't be revisited until much later. Watch my video on Redman for more. Then at last, Toll Narita brought a design that was not only alien in appearance, but also heroic, complete with silver skin and red patterns. After the development of suits, and gathering a cast from Toho, including Godzilla star Akihiko Hirata, and bringing back people who were from Ultra Q, such as composer Kunio Miyauchi and writer Hajime Tsuburaya, TBS and Tsuburaya were ready to initiate the birth of an icon. Ultraman was ready for filming. Much like Ultra Q, Ultraman was yet another ambitious production. To accommodate for budgetary costs and being able to use color, the show would mainly be shot on 16mm film, the industry standard for Japanese television at the time. But anything that required optical effects would be shot on 35mm film, which was what Tsuburaya used for shooting Ultra Q. This also allowed the production to go pretty smoothly. However, the pressure was on TBS and Tsuburaya. Toei and Fuji TV were also trying to get in on the Kyodai hero trend with Ambassador Magma, which was also scheduled to air that same month. And because Ultraman was a hefty task for Tsuburaya and TBS, and was already on a tight schedule, the production was divided into 3 teams: the main production team, the live-action filming team, and the special effects filming team. However, Tsuburaya was struggling to meet the production deadline, and after negotiating with TBS and their sponsors, they decided that before Ultraman would hit airwaves, they air a live TV performance known as the Ultraman Eve Festival, a pilot that was made with the intent to sell viewers on Ultraman, and would later be renamed to The Birth of Ultraman. Then, the day finally came. On July 17th, 1966, Ultraman had finally hit television, with Ultra Operation No. 1. From Nebula M78 comes a guardian who followed a terrifying monster named Bemilar to Earth. In his pursuit, the spaceman meets Shin Hayata of the Science Special Search Party, normally shortened to Science Patrol. The two would fuse together, and with the power of the Beta Capsule, Hayata can become Ultraman. Portrayed by Bin Furuya, complete with specium rays, the ability to fly, and the fighting style akin to that of wrestling, judo, and jujitsu, Ultraman would defend Earth from monsters and aliens of all types, which are all very unique. Some of these monsters include the prehistoric beast Red King, the malevolent Mephilus, the underground monster Telesdan, the terrifying Gomora, and Jiras, who was played by none other than Haruo Nakajima. The monsters that appear in Ultraman have proven themselves to be some of the most unique and interesting creature designs to ever be seen in Tokusatsu. It's their very experimental nature that gives them so much charm and appeal, so much that they're even referenced in other media, more so than Ultra Q. But Ultraman doesn't win victoriously so easily. A last-minute decision was made to the character in the form of the color timer. If Hayata is Ultraman for 3 minutes, his energy is depleted, rendering him unable to fight any longer. This would create tension in some of Ultraman's most legendary battles, such as his final fight with the alien Zeton. And it was an interesting way for Tsuburaya to save production costs for special effects, as well as remind us that no one is ever truly invincible. On a visual standpoint, Ultraman is a phenomenal spectacle of a series, hence why the full title is Ultraman, a special effects fantasy series. It was a series where, much like Ultra Q, the impossible was possible, and SCRYE wanted to make it as aesthetically pleasing as possible. One example being the show's increase in popularity, which led to an increase in budget, which meant that the Ultraman suit would continue to look more refined and cleaner as the series went on. But another thing that makes Ultraman stand the test of time is its storytelling. On one hand, it's easy to bash Ultraman for being formulaic, or a Monster of the Week series for outsiders who don't show much interest. Ultraman takes the Monster of the Week formula and puts it in the backseat. Unlike Ultra Q, where each episode would stand alone, Ultraman has a sense of an overarching story, albeit more subtle, with hints of character development. Speaking of which, let us meet Hayato's fellow comrades of the Science Patrol. Captain Muramatsu is their well-respected leader, played by Akiji Kobayashi. Daisuke Arashi is the team's stubborn sharpshooter, played by Sandayu Mamushi. Akiko Fuji is the communications officer, who is also the little sister of the group, played by Hiroko Sakurai. And Mitsuhiro Ide is the funny, charming, and lovable heart and soul of the Science Patrol, played by Masanari Nihei. While Ultraman's cast of characters may be one note at first, as the show continues there are some amazingly well-written and well-crafted episodes, despite following a mainly episodic format that gives the characters subtle development. Some of these episodes include Defeat the Invaders, The Pearl Defense Directive, Terrifying Cosmic Rays, and The Little Hero. But aside from being driven by its characters, Ultraman has some great stories that are focused on their kaiju as well, such as The Lawless Monster Zone, The Forbidden Worlds, and fan-favorite episode, My Home is Earth, about an astronaut named Jamila who had fused with a mutagen that turned him into a horrifying creature. This builds a lot of internal conflict amongst the characters, as they are unsure as to how to handle the situation, as it also creates a heavy level of tragedy for Jamila. My Home is Earth is also a fantastic display of Ultraman's visual style when it comes to the lighting, set pieces, cinematography, and production design, like in Overthrow the Surface. And this is all thanks to director Akio Jisoji, who has such an artistically striking and almost otherworldly and dreamlike style that was certainly carried from Ultra Q, and truly makes these types of episodes in Ultraman just fantastic and enjoyable all around. Speaking of joy, while Ultraman does have a heavy emphasis on its fantastical elements from a visual narrative standpoint, it definitely has its more silly yet charming moments. All in all, it's what makes Tokusatsu so lovable to many. Episodes like The Rascal from Outer Space and Present from the Sky really show that sometimes Tokusatsu can just be really fun and not taken too seriously. And considering the amount of effort put into many of these episodes, that is super commendable, and honestly, a very neat way to diversify its appeal. But aside from episodes like The Blue Stone of Paradi that gives the show some neat world building, and the final episode, which I will not name nor spoil until later because of how greatly executed it is, there is another episode of Ultraman that really stands out, an episode that takes a small break from the monster battles and reflects on what the series has become, and that is the Monster Graveyard. In this episode, the Science Patrol reminisce about their earlier foes as they've discovered the titular Monster Graveyard. But why? Why go as far as to hold a Buddhist funeral to mourn the deaths of your own enemies? And that brings us to the biggest theme of this show, and that is the value of life. While yes, Ultraman in episodes can give a monster an absolute beating without a single thought, it doesn't change the fact that these are living creatures who are either just following orders, looking for a new home, or just simply wandering about and just so happen to be larger than life threats to the Earth. I want to bring up a quote from Ishiro Honda when he was making the first Godzilla film, and it reads, "Monsters are tragic beings. They are born too tall, too strong, too heavy. They are not evil by choice. That is their tragedy." Ultraman and the Science Patrol do not fight monsters because they want to, but because they have to. It really hits home the idea that as great life can be, we cannot coexist with such massive creatures, and it's the same idea that challenges our very characters in the later episodes of Ultraman. In media, we're so used to the concept of the other, where there's no point in trying to understand it, we must get rid of it. Ultraman takes that concept and completely disregards it by allowing us to consider the motives, the thoughts, the feelings, and the purpose of the other. Why do they go about the way they do? If we were to exterminate them, are we as much of a monster as they are, if not more? And that is some really deep stuff for a children's show in 1966, and is one of the reasons why Ultraman is such a brilliant series. But now I will talk about the final episode of Ultraman, so if you have not watched the series and want to avoid spoilers, please skip to the time code on the screen. I'll give you a few. The last episode of Ultraman, aptly named Farewell Ultraman, is considered one of the biggest highlights in the entire Ultra series. Up to this point, Ultraman and the Science Patrol have already taken down many creatures in the past. Some of them were a bit tough, but nonetheless they would stand victorious. But none of them were quite like the menacing Zeton, who puts the Science Patrol at a great disadvantage and manages to do the impossible. Zeton actually defeats Ultraman. Why would Tsuburaya want to end the show on such a rather devastating note? Well, one will have to put it in the context of the show's country of origin. Throughout the years, Japan has been engaged in numerous conflicts, and a good number of said conflicts were bloody, violent, and did not end very well. This will then bring in the notion of losing with honor. Losing as you're protecting what you hold so dearly, fighting until your last breath. And while Imperial Japan may have taken this notion and abused it for tyranny, it's actually quite a universal one, as it can apply to anything on a daily basis, whether it's school, work, video games, or your favorite hobby. Ultraman is a hero who lost with honor, and actually teaches a very down-to-earth lesson to its viewers. Sometimes, life can be unfair, and that even the strongest people can have their downfalls. Sometimes heroes don't win, and while it's hard to accept that, it's a reality that we all must come to face, as just like us, Ultraman is mortal. He is flawed, imperfect, and that is okay. The fact that Ultraman fell and is no different than us is what gives us hope. It's what inspires us to become the best we can be. We may not be monster-fighting giant heroes, but we can certainly stand up for what we love and cherish and believe in. It is this brilliance that would capture the hearts and souls of many people for generations to come, as Ultraman would become a national phenomenon in Japan. From Hideaki Anno to Guillermo del Toro, there is no doubt that Ultraman changed the landscape of Japanese and Japanese-inspired media. After its success, Ultraman would go on to become one of the biggest icons of Japanese pop culture, and the Ultra series came into full swing, as the show would be followed by more beloved entries like Ultra 7, The Return of Ultraman, Ultraman Tiga, Ultraman X's, Ultraman X, and many, many more, including other Kyota Hero shows, the rest of the Showa Ultra series, animated installments, the Heisei Ultra series, the current New Generation series, and many more. To this day, Ultraman is still fondly remembered, as new shows and spin-offs are still coming out every year. Somewhere in the world, someone is discovering Ultraman for the first time. The power and influence Ultraman has is on par with the likes of Superman and Spider-Man. It is a series that truly shows what it means to be a hero, and to become Ultra. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you all so much for over 20,000 subscribers. Y'all have no idea how much that means to me, and if you want to see more videos like this and support the channel further, then by all means, support me on Patreon, where for a single $1, your name can appear at the end of every future upload. Other than that, you can also get early access to videos, exclusive content, commission video requests, and receive a t-shirt of your choice from my TeePublic, like this celebratory shirt I made for the 55th anniversary of Ultraman. Once I reach enough patrons, I'll do a video covering several unmade Godzilla films, so if that's something you'd like to see, then go support me on Patreon. Feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and this is TitanGoji, signing off.